Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new episode of Midlife Crisis. Today we're going to start talking about Eclipso, The Darkness Within, the 1992 annual event that DC did. It was the next one that they did after Armageddon. So just like Armageddon, it involves all of the annuals of their current series. Eclipso, The Darkness Within basically deals with the DC Universe versus Eclipso, a supervillain in the DC Universe. Now, explaining a little bit of lore of Eclipso, because this series does retcon him a little bit, or a lot. Eclipso was originally the alternate personality of a doctor named Bruce Gordon, whose name was literally Bruce Wayne and Commissioner Gordon put together to create Bruce Gordon. So he was already like a joke character. He became a villain, he gained this evil personality called Eclipso, who had powers, and he faced the Justice League, and then he became a Green Lantern villain. And for all this time, Eclipso was just his alternate personality. It happened when he got scratched by a thing called the Black Diamond, which is what gives him his abilities, or the Heart of Darkness is what it's known as. And this story retcons it so that Eclipso is actually a god who was trapped inside the jewel and was released originally by Bruce Gordon when it scratched him on the arm and then possessed him. And so, yeah, Eclipso is now a god, and this is the story that retconned and created that fact. And he would be a god from now onward. So the story, the main overall story is written by Keith Giffen and Robert Loren Fleming. This specific issue, the Eclipso, The Darkness Within issues, because there's two of them, are the art is by Bart Sears, Randy Elliott, and Mark Pennington. So let's get straight into this. So the issue begins in the year 1890, where an explorer and his his friend are exploring some jungles. They don't really specifically say what ones. They're just in some jungles. They're warned by the local tribes not to go into a cave. They're searching for the Heart of Darkness, which was written about in a book. The writer who wrote the book that accompanied them ended up running away because he was too afraid to go after what they were searching for. They eventually find the Heart of Darkness, which is a giant jewel, and their plan is to sell the jewel, and then the explorer says something a little bit weird. He's like, what does he say again? He says something kind of weird. He's like, priceless doesn't sound nearly as good as split two ways. And his friend is like, good lord. And he flashes a flashlight on him, and you don't get to see it, but his friend has been possessed by Eclipso. And so we then go a year later in the year 1981, or 1891, I mean, in London, where this explorer brings the Heart of Darkness to an appraiser and basically asks him to split it up into 100 black diamonds because it'll be easier for him to sell. But that's not the real reason he wants it split up. It's because Eclipso wants to take over the world by using these black diamonds to possess all of the heroes in the world. That's what this event is. So, 100 years later, Eclipso now resides on the moon. He's created his own palace out of the Heart of Darkness. The Heart of Darkness is now split up into hundreds of diamonds scattered across the earth. A character, what was his name? I think he would eventually be called Mon-El, but at the moment his name is actually Largand. So Largand is a Domaxian, if I remember correctly, who is They live on one of Krypton's moons, something like that. They're very similar to Kryptonians. They get their powers from the sun, stuff like that. He finds the palace on the moon and he heads in there, and the palace opens up for him, and he's like, "That's weird. All right, this is kind of freaking me out." And then he enters the palace and he kind of realizes that the energies of the palace are kind of making him feel angrier, and he's like, "Wow, why am I starting to feel so angry?" And that's when Eclipso appears before him. He's like, "Whoa, you just grew out of that chair." And Eclipso's like,
I am the chair, or rather, the chair is an extension of my palace, which is all that's left of me.
And he basically explains to Largan that, like, he was a god trapped inside a jewel, and now he's finally going to escape and use Largan as his first step to taking over the world. And he's like, but I'm going to do it fairly. Like, I'm going to have you fight me, because you feel so angry, so you're going to feel tempted to punch me. And Largan is like, hey, but I can control my anger, and I'm just going to leave. And Eclipso is like, wrong. And that's when Largan gets possessed by Eclipso and falls under Eclipso's power, and that's when Eclipso determines that he's like his the initiative for his plan begins. Now that he's already taken control of a superhero as strong as Superman, but Superman is on his starting list of heroes to take over, but he's not ready to take over Superman yet because he wants to kind of test the waters by taking over somebody else that the heroes wouldn't believe. Like, basically, he wants to try to take over a character that no one's going to believe anyway. Like, so if he tries to take over a hero and it doesn't work, and the hero tries to tell everyone else, they won't believe him. So he's looking for someone specifically that the other heroes won't believe, and he does eventually find that person. So we cut from Eclipso, and we find Bruce Gordon in his apartment doing research on the Black Diamond that he owns. He hasn't seen Eclipso in a while, like Eclipso hasn't emerged for a while. He's trying to figure out how to destroy the Black Diamond, but as far as he can tell, it's impossible. And he believes that the only way to destroy Eclipso is by destroying the Black Diamond. He notices the Black Diamond that he has in his petri dish starts moving, and he comes to the conclusion that, like, Eclipso must be nearby because the Black Diamond always calls to him whenever he's near. So he decides that he needs to go searching for Eclipso. So he creates, like, this little solar-powered device that allows him to, like, that will point him in the direction to where Eclipso is. Eclipso is actually weak to solar power, and usually his plans involve him trying to eclipse the sun and stuff because that's his weakness. So the device leads Bruce Gordon to a pawn shop where he finds the pawn shop owner dead, just in a pool of blood. He's like, oh shit. And then he sees the wife of the pawn shop owner run away, and Bruce Gordon's like, no, it's okay, like, who attacked him? Like, was it you? Like, you're gonna be fine. And he goes after this woman, and it turns out the woman is possessed by Eclipso. She tries to attack Bruce Gordon, and he's just like, get the fuck away from me. He ends up shining the torch on her, and that expels Eclipso from her body. He's like, what the hell is going on here? And he finds a black diamond on her and realizes that there's more than one, which is not a good thing. So Bruce Gordon goes to his friend Mona and is basically just like, there are 2 black diamonds, what the hell is going on? I have no idea what the hell is going on. And Mona's just like, calm down. Please don't shout at me. And Bruce is just like, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of all over the place at the moment because, like, Eclipso's back and he's creating more black diamonds and things are getting out of hand. Like, we gotta find a way to stop him without getting authorities involved because they're just gonna think we're crazy if we tell them what's going on. They're not gonna believe us. The Phantom Stranger goes and visits Eclipso and is basically just like, I'm coming here to warn you, like, if you try to do any shit, I'm gonna come and stop you. And Eclipso is like, I dare you to. And that's all that happens in that scene. It's like, I dare you, Phantom Stranger, come at me. So Bruce Gordon and Mona take the black diamonds to a gem store to get it appraised, and the owners know that they are the black diamonds, so he calls in his friends. They all come in, and that's when they explain to Bruce Gordon that the black diamonds came from the Heart of Darkness, which originally held Eclipso, who is a god, and that now he is released, and he's going to, like, release his power across the entire planet. And Bruce Gordon's just like, shit, because he didn't know that Eclipso was a god. Like, he's learning this for the first time himself. So we find in Boston, Massachusetts, at like a TV station owned by Jack Ryder, who is a reporter in the Batman comics. He is the secret identity of the Creeper, who is his alternate personality. Which is funny that he's in this story because, like, has that in common with Eclipso, where like they are alternate personalities. So this villain called the Survivalist, who's just a dude with guns, comes in storming through the station, killing people. He's possessed by Eclipso, and he wants the Creeper to show up to fight him. So the Creeper shows up, fights the Survivalist. They have a massive brawl out, and then which draws him to the top of the skyscraper. And that's when the Survivalist kind of just leaves the jewel and kind of eggs Creeper on to pick it up. He's like, "You're not going to pick it up." And the Creeper picks it up, and that's exactly what the Survivalist wanted, because he's possessed by Eclipso. So it allows Eclipso to leave Survivalist's body and take over Creeper's, and the Survivalist just falls to his death. And because the possession works on the Creeper, Eclipso decides that like his plan is going to work, because the reason he picked the Creeper is because he knew that if the possession didn't work, none of the Justice League or any of the other heroes would have believed the Creeper, because he's insane. You know, so if the Creeper was like, "Hey, Eclipso tried to take over me," the heroes would be like, we don't believe you. So he's taken over the Creeper now, and now he's gonna go after Superman, because Superman is his biggest threat. So Bruce Gordon decides that he's going to try and sort this shit out himself. Doesn't want to get the authorities involved. So he and Mona decide to head off to look for more black diamonds, which leads them to the Metropolis Mall, to a gaming arcade, where a child there has a black diamond, and this dude takes over the game that he was trying to play, so the kid gets pissed off, which activates the black diamond, and this kid just vomits up a bunch of black goo, which turns into a giant Hulk-like Eclipso, who then starts causing havoc throughout the mall. And the reason he did this is because he wants Superman to come and fight him so that he can take control of Superman. But he wasn't expecting Bruce Gordon to get in the way. So Superman sees what's going on in the news and decides to head off into the mall to help everyone. So he flies over there, he fights this hulking Eclipso, and the fight with Superman causes Eclipso to lose sight of the kid that had the black diamond. And if he wants to take control of Superman, he's going to need the black diamond. So he tries to go after the kid, but Bruce Gordon gets in his way and uses his flashlight beam to, get rid of the Hulk Eclipso, because sunlight, kills Eclipso clones, whatever. So Bruce saves the day, and he explains to Superman that Eclipso is not done. He's going to be going on and finding more heroes, and that they're going to have to work together in order to stop Eclipso from taking over the world. And we end the issue with Eclipso determining that he's going to hunt down Superman again, and this time he's going to grind his bones to dust. And that's where our first issue leaves us off. So, I've heard that Eclipso the Darkness Within is considered to be the worst event, or not the worst event, but one of them. I don't know how it could be worse than Armageddon, because that one didn't even really have a story, properly outside of those two issues. This wasn't bad. I enjoyed it. I'm just afraid that, the reason people say it's bad is because the annuals in between are bad. But I'd say this was alright. It really just depends on, whether or not you like Eclipso. I read a lot of Green Lantern, so I'm already pretty... I'm used to Bruce Gordon being, a regular character in that series, and Eclipso being, a regular villain. So I kind of like Eclipso a little bit more than most people do. So, I might enjoy this event. I don't know. I guess we'll find out when we move on to the Superman Man of Steel Annual, which is the first annual within this story event. So we're going to see how this event transpires in that. Alright, so the Superman Man of Steel Annual, written by Chris Wozniak, art by Chris Wozniak, with dialogue by Robert Lauren Fleming, and art by Brad Venkata as well. This one is a Superman annual, but at the same time it's also kind of a Starman annual, because there's a lot of Starman stuff. So the annual basically just goes over everything that we just saw. It just shows Superman fighting Eclipso in the mall and stuff. And then it shows like Bruce Gordon and Mona explain to Superman like what Eclipso is. And then the Creeper shows up possessed by Eclipso to fight Superman. And so Superman and the Creeper fight each other. And then Superman decides to grab hold of Creeper is like, hey, have a black diamond, Superman. And Superman takes the black diamond because he wants to test if his will is strong enough to resist it. And it is. Superman has no evil inside of him, so Eclipso can't possess him because you have to have some ounce of evil in you to be possessed. And so Eclipso Creeper blacks out like the room with his powers, but Superman, because he's listening to Creeper, can still hear him, so he goes to attack Creeper and Creeper runs away, still possessed by Eclipso. Superman and Bruce Gordon and Mona decide to team up in order to go searching for more people possessed by Eclipsos. And meanwhile, Starman goes to this facility where they're creating this weapon by these two doctors named Melrose and Hayford. And they've captured the character known as Phantom Lady, and so Starman shows up to save her, and it turns out that Hayford is possessed by Eclipso, and so he fights Starman, and then Eclipso manages to take control of Starman, and so Starman is now possessed by Eclipso, and then he swallows his black diamond so that Bruce Gordon won't know that Starman is possessed by Eclipso, so that if his plans fail, he's still got one superhero that he's in control of that no one will know about. So, possessing Starman, Eclipso then goes off to find somebody else to possess. Superman goes after the kid that has the little black diamond that he's been chasing after. So he heads there, and this kid is getting beaten up by his parents, and so he summons forth the brutish Eclipso again. So Superman comes and fights it, and the brute takes the kid hostage, and Bruce Gordon comes in and gives Superman the solar-powered device to shoot at Eclipso, but Eclipso is like, if you shoot it at me, I'll break this kid's neck, and Superman is like, alright, I'll put the weapon down, and he points the solar eclipse gun at like a puddle so that it would reflect the beam and hit Eclipso, knocking the kid out of his arms so that Superman can then hit him with a full blast, destroying him and saving the kid. Superman and Mona and Bruce then continue their search for more people possessed by Eclipso. They head to a place known as Moonstone Gifts and Curios, which is where the kid found the Black Diamond, and Bruce deduces that like the man who worked there was Eclipso, the man who owned the store. So Starman, possessed by Eclipso, goes and finds this character called Rampage, who is this woman that can transform into this monstrous being. I won't go into it because I know nothing about Rampage. I just know that she is a character who gets possessed by Eclipso because Starman shows up at her house and pisses her off by taking the form. Because Starman has transforming abilities, so he transforms into the dude responsible for turning her into Rampage. So this pisses her off, and because she gets pissed off, and she has like a sense of evil in her, he uses the Black Diamond to take control of Rampage. But what Eclipso doesn't realize is that when he creates another Eclipso, that Eclipso is upset at him and must fight him. And so Eclipso ends up having to fight himself. So Starman Eclipso and Rampage Eclipso fight each other. And Superman, Bruce Gordon, and Mona sense the energies of the Black Diamonds coming from Rampage and Starman. So they head down there, and Superman fights Rampage alongside Starman, because Superman doesn't know that Starman is possessed by Eclipso, because Eclipso, Starman has like swallowed the Black Diamond, so, and he transforms his face to make himself look like regular Starman, so he doesn't have like the Eclipso face. So he and Superman team up against Rampage, and they manage to expel the Black Diamond from Rampage, transforming her into a regular human again. And then Bruce Gordon arrives, and he senses the energy of the Black Diamond a little bit, but all he sees is Starman. He's like, oh, Starman's here, but he doesn't know that he's possessed by Eclipso. And Starman sees Bruce Gordon and is like, I have a chance in order to kill Bruce Gordon, but oh no, the sun's rising, so I can't do it right now. And he runs away, and Bruce Gordon's like, wow, why did he run away? That was weird. And so Superman, carrying the limp human form of Rampage, decides to head off and take her to safety alongside Bruce Gordon and Mona, and we're left wondering what's going to happen next in the story, and we'll find out in the Green Lantern Annual. So, yeah, that was the Superman Man of Steel Annual. A lot going on already. It's half of it was like a Superman Annual, the other half was a Starman Annual. Yeah, this one wasn't that great. This one, it's just a lot of action. I guess if you like that, then that's cool. But, like, I don't know. It was kind of mid. It's like, yeah, whatever. Like, cool. We got to see Superman fight Rampage and Eclipso multiple times. We got to see Superman fight the Creeper, so that was at least interesting. Alright, so the next issue that we're going to be talking about is Green Lantern Annual 1, written by Gerard Jones, with art by Andy Smith and John Beatty. This is one of the series that I've actually been reading in my own time, is Gerard Jones' Green Lantern run. But I obviously skipped this annual because, you know, I wanted to read it alongside the rest of the event. So the annual begins with Kilowog has been tasked, because Hal Jordan just recently recruited a whole bunch of new Green Lanterns for a new Green Lantern Corps, because the old ones all died and all stopped being Green Lanterns. So he had to get a bunch of new ones, and now Kilowog is training them all. And then John Stewart joins him while he's training these new recruits. And then they realize that one of the members, Amanita, he has like visions and stuff. And they notice that he's just staring out blankly into space, which means he's probably having a vision of something. And whenever he has a vision of something, it's something dire. So Kilowog has a feeling that some shit is about to go down. And it's, of course it is, because it's Eclipso, you know, and it's Green Lantern. So Eclipso is planning on taking control of Hal Jordan because he wants the power that Hal Jordan has. How did he do that? Well, using Starman, he goes and visits like a homeless guy and gives him a black diamond to take control of his mind, and then has the homeless guy go over to a prostitute and give her the black diamond, and then she goes to a nightclub and gives it to some random dude there and gives him the black diamond, and then he heads into a back room where one of the strippers is being attacked by a guy and gives her the black diamond, and then she gets controlled by Eclipso and murders this dude. And then, now that the black diamond is full of rage, she hands it to Guy Gardner, who just happens to be in the area. Like, she like, throws it to him, like, on the ground, and he picks it up, and he's like, what the fuck is this? And then, obviously, when he picks it up, he becomes possessed by Eclipso, because Guy Gardner is a very angry man. Carol Ferris has a nightmare and screams out for help, so Hal Jordan, as Green Lantern, goes to see her, and she knows he's Green Lantern by now. And she basically explains to Hal that she just had a horrible dream where she became Star Sapphire again, because recently she had fought Star Sapphire for control and had taken full control, and now Star Sapphire is gone, supposedly. But she's just had a dream where she became Star Sapphire again and then killed Hal Jordan, and it makes her believe that she truly hates Hal Jordan in real life. And they have an argument about it, and Hal's just like, man, I wish I didn't answer your cry for help, because now I just feel like shit, because, you know, you just told me that you killed me in a dream, and that's not something I really wanted to hear about. And so he storms out of the room, and he looks out the window and is kind of just like, man, like, this sucks. And that's when Guy Gardner comes by, possessed by Eclipso, and starts peeking in on, like, Hal Jordan. Meanwhile, Bruce Gordon and Mona are brought to the club where all that shit went down, and they realize that, like, there were black diamonds there, and one of them is gone, and then they hear that Guy Gardner was in the area, and that the Justice League haven't heard from him in a while, so they put two and two together, and they're like, ah shit, Guy Gardner might be possessed by a Black Diamond, let's go after him and see if we can find him. So Eclipso, Guy Gardner drops a Black Diamond by Hal Jordan's door. He wants Hal Jordan to pick it up and become Eclipso, but Hal Jordan just walks right past it, and Carol Ferris finds it instead. And she's like, ah crap, this diamond doesn't look very good, but maybe I should pick it up anyway so that nobody else grabs it, because somebody's probably looking for it. And so she picks it up, and she gets possessed by Eclipso, which forces her Star Sapphire personality to come out again, and she transforms into Eclipso-possessed Star Sapphire. And then she heads off to find Hal Jordan because she wants to kill him, but she realizes that he's not in there, and so she goes off to find him, and Hal... She doesn't realize that Hal's there, so Hal goes and chases after her because he sees her flying off, so he turns into Green Lantern and he heads off after her. And Star Sapphire heads to Ferris Airlines, where she just starts blowing shit up because she knows that if she does that, Green Lantern will show up. And she goes after a woman who looks suspiciously like Carol, because Carol's dad isn't there for her to kill, so she was like, I guess I'll kill a substitute. And Hal's like, no substitutes. He comes in and he starts fighting Star Sapphire, obviously to stop her from killing people. But Star Sapphire, like, hits him and sends him flying, and when he goes back to attack Star Sapphire, that's when he comes across Starman. He's like, Starman, what are you doing here? And Starman's like, hey, I'm here to help you fight Eclipso, because she's possessed by Eclipso. So they decide to fight Carol together, and then Starman hits Hal Jordan from behind because, you know, he's not actually on Hal's side, and knocks him out. And it's when Hal gets knocked out that Kilowog tries to speak to Hal and sees that he's been knocked out. And he sees that Scarlet Sapphire is there, or Star Sapphire is there, and he's like, ah shit, well, we better go and help Hal. And so, off panel, Star Sapphire gives Hal a Black Diamond and turns him into an Eclipso. But he still needs to she still needs to bring the rage out of him. He isn't fully possessed yet until he really has something to rage about. So, Bruce Gordon and Mona show up and they see Star Sapphire leaving, and they see Starman leaving as well, and that's when Bruce is like, man, Starman, this is the second time Starman has left without talking to us. Maybe he's not the same as we think maybe he's acting different for a reason. And that's when Guy Gardner, possessed by Eclipso, shows up, and so they use his solar power gun on him, and expel Eclipso from him. And so Guy's just like, ah man, screw this, I'm leaving. Because they try to get him to help them, but he's like, nah, screw you guys, I'm off, I'm out of here. You're not even going to see me in this costume for long, I'm not a Green Lantern anymore. So Star Sapphire comes into conflict with the other Green Lanterns. They all show up and they start fighting her. And then Hal shows up and gets in their way and starts fighting her instead. And he starts like almost killing her while the other Lanterns are just frozen watching, being like, oh my god, he's gonna kill her. Carol depowers, and this triggers Hal's rage enough for Eclipso to take over. But like, it's just Star Sapphire turning back into Carol just for a little bit. Like, she turns back into Star Sapphire right after. It was just to pull down Hal's guard so that he would be fully possessed by Eclipso. So Kilowog tries to stop Hal from killing Star Sapphire, but he gets knocked out by Hal, and so John has to fight Hal instead. And Hal is kind of egging him on, like, I tried to steal your girlfriend, John. Like, you must be super angry at Hal. And John's just like, Hal's made a lot of mistakes, but he's my best friend. I'm going to do anything I can to save him. And so, he tries to fight and save Hal alongside Kilowog, but they fail because Star Sapphire and Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, shoot their beams at each other, causing a massive explosion that sends all of the lanterns flying in different directions. And when they wake back up, Hal and Carol are both gone. And so Kilowog decides that they need to split up and go searching for them, and that Kilowog is going to go and get the help of the Justice League to go search for Hal. And that's where it ends. It ends with the Green Lanterns all splitting up to go and search for Hal and Carol. This one, a lot happened in this one. I can't believe it took me so long to, like, it felt like I was explaining this one quickly, but then it's just like, man, it's taken me just as long to explain this one as it has some other ones. But I guess we'll find out what happens next in the story in Detective Comics Annual 5. So, the next annual we're going to be talking about is Detective Comics Issue 5, or Annual 5. Some quick, there's a side story in this that's connected to the main story, but it's not the one we're going to focus on, so I'll just quickly summarize it. Scarface is holding his own little show. Scarface is like a puppet controlled by the ventriloquist, except he's like a separate personality, doesn't matter. He's holding a show, and he decides to create a plan to break the Joker out of Arkham Asylum so that he can get the Joker to show him where this stash of $25 million is, because the Joker knows where it is, but he was locked away in Arkham Asylum, and he's the only one that knows where it is. So that is the side plot going on in this. The actual Eclipso plot going on is that Batman takes down a truck that's stealing a bunch of artifacts, and when he stops the truck, he finds a black diamond on the road and decides to take it back with him to the Batcave in order to test it and see what's going on with it. Commissioner Gordon is still dealing with the fact that his daughter is in a wheelchair. He still hasn't gotten over the fact that the Joker was responsible, so he's got all this pin-up rage inside of him. So you can imagine that's probably going to lead to something later, like Eclipso related. So he's on the phone to Barbara, and she's like, "Stop worrying, Dad." And Jim says that he's stopped worrying, but he's lying. You know, he crumples up the photo of the Joker with his fist, and he's just like, "Ugh." So Batman goes back to the Batcave and does tests on it where he decides that the diamond seems to be alive, and that he needs to learn more about it. Commissioner Gordon gets a call from Bruce Gordon, who goes to visit him in order to talk to him about Eclipso. Scarface's gang goes to Arkham Asylum and frees the Joker from Arkham, and then they decide to head off to the place where the Joker apparently stashed $25 million. So the Joker leads them to a toy warehouse. Bruce Gordon, Jim Gordon, and Batman, Bruce Wayne, all meet up and talk about Eclipso, in which Bruce Gordon tells Batman the history of Eclipso, and that's when Jim gets a call that the Joker has been freed from prison, so Batman decides to go off and stop the Joker. And Jim is told to go and find the Black Diamond. Like, he agrees to go and get the Black Diamond. He's like, "You go deal with the Joker, I'll go get the Black Diamond." So he goes and heads off. He finds the Black Diamond, and when he holds onto it, his rage manifests into a giant Eclipso monster that is filled with rage to kill the Joker. So it heads off and to find the Joker and kill him. So Batman decides to chase after this giant, Eclipso demon. The Eclipso demon makes it to the toy warehouse, tries to kill the Joker, but the cops show up and start shooting at it. And Batman shows up, and he uses solar-powered water in order to hurt it, but it's not enough to destroy it, because it's got solar panels on the roof of the warehouse, and water with the solar panels was enough to hurt him. It doesn't make any sense, but that's what happens. But yeah, the Eclipso monster, it's not enough to destroy him, so Batman finds a light lance on the ground. It's like a toy lance that shoots light, I guess, and he's going to use that to destroy the Eclipso monster, or at least try and get a chance to do that. Jim decides that he's going to try and help Batman destroy the Eclipso monster as well. He saves the Joker from being killed by the Eclipso monster. And then Jim Gordon shows up and does the most badass thing in this entire issue. He jumps into a police car and just rams head-on straight into the Eclipso monster, and the lights of the front of the car smashing into him weakens the Eclipso monster long enough that Batman can get a chance to stab him in the chest with the light spear that he has, like the toy spear javelin that's light. Stabs it, destroys it, and then the Joker is like, hey, look at these chemicals I've got. You think you're going to take me back to Arkham? Well, not if I mix these together. And he mixes the chemicals together and it causes a little poof, and he disappears, and Batman's like, ah, shit. The Joker got away. And then that's where it ends. It ends after they destroyed the Eclipso monster. It ends right there. The Joker gets away, and we're left with a little explanation bubble that says, for more of Eclipso, don't miss Superman Annual 4. And if you want to keep reading this story, of this Batman story, then you'll be able to continue it in Robin Annual 1, because all of the Batman comics were, like, connected at this point. Same with the Superman ones. This one was good. I like, to a degree. Like, it wasn't amazing, but, like, I enjoyed it more than, like, the Superman one, you know? Especially Commissioner Gordon just ramming head first, like driving straight into the Eclipso monster. That part was badass. Just getting to see Jim Gordon be a badass guy and be the hero of the day, and finally kind of like come to grasp with the rage inside of him that he has over Barbara's being paralyzed by the Joker. I was not expecting this annual to deal so heavily in that, and like Jim's feelings and having not moved on from Killing Joke, you know? Alright, so the next annual that we are talking about is Superman Annual 4. Written by Dan Vardo with art by Scott Benefiel and Trevor Scott. Now the problem with having so many Superman titles is it means that all of them have parts in this story, which means Superman has to face Eclipso 3 or more times. And so Superman comes across this woman that's being held hostage. The guy believes that he was possessed by an alien, and the cops don't believe him. Superman's like, why don't you believe him? Is there nothing to believe? Like, do you think his story sounds phony or something? Because obviously Superman knows that this guy isn't crazy and that he was probably possessed by Eclipso. So the guy goes to kill himself, and Superman grabs the gun and is like, easy, and like destroys it. And the guy's like, can you please like just help me? And if you can't help me, then just kill me, because I'd rather not be taken over by this other dude again. And then by this alien again. And then Bruce Gordon shows up and is like, hey, I'm here because I have to be here because it's Eclipso related. And as this guy is being taken away by the police, one of the cops finds a black diamond and manifests like an Eclipso robot armor. And so Superman fights this Eclipso robot, and Bruce tries to get back into his car in order to get his solar device, so he has to quickly grab his keys while Superman is being, attacked by this Eclipso thing. So he opens up his car and he grabs his like solar trap and then shoots the Eclipso robot and destroys it, freeing the cop from the Black Diamond's possession. And then we get to the real story, because that was just the prologue. So Lois Lane is heading to a town known as Crater Bay. She's going there to meet this guy named Jerry, and when she gets there, she has to stay at this cabin owned by this guy named Ned. Basically, she just wants to interview this guy named Jerry because weird stuff's going on in the town. Without even, we're not even going to wait until the big reveal. Ned is actually Eclipso Starman in disguise, and Jerry isn't possessed by an Eclipso, but he is working for Ned because Ned has his wife held hostage, and he basically needs Jerry to make Lois angry enough that she will get possessed by the Black Diamond that Ned is going to give her. So Ned gives her a Black Diamond, and then Jerry is left to try and make her angry. Bruce Gordon and Mona are heading on their way to Crater Bay, where they can sense a Black Diamond. They get attacked by a giant Eclipso monster, which destroys their car and the solar trap. And so Superman... And it also destroys, the device that they use to find Black Diamonds. And as far as I know, that doesn't get fixed after this. The solar trap gets fixed very soon after this, but the diamond locator does not. Superman shows up and fights the Eclipso monster, and ends up knocking it into like a bunch of these like solar powered greenhouses, which destroy the Eclipso beast. And then Bruce and Mona are like, ah, shit, the solar trap's destroyed. And then Superman's like, well, at least we know where to go. So what we'll do is we'll head there while you fix the solar trap. And they're like, how are we going to get there? The car's destroyed. Superman's like, get in. And so they get into the destroyed car, and Superman picks it up and flies off to Crater Bay with them. Lois puts the black diamond around her neck, and then her and Jerry decide to head out into town in order to have their interview. So they go to this local diner. They don't realize that there's a bunch of, like, Eclipso creatures watching them from the shadows. Jerry knows what's going on, but he's obviously not telling Lois. So they head to, like... So the town has been taken over by Eclipso monsters, by the way. Everyone in the town are Eclipso monsters. It's kind of hard to put two and two together because they don't straight up tell you until, like, a reveal later. But, like, everyone in the town is possessed by Eclipso. So they get to this diner, they start their interview, and because Jerry is trying to upset Lois... He keeps pouring coffee on her on possible. He's literally just pushing the coffee off of her onto her lap. And she is like the dumbest person on earth because she doesn't, for some reason, he does it twice. And she doesn't see that he's doing it on purpose. And eventually she gets upset and is like, I've had enough. I'm getting out of here. And because she's so angry, she comes across Superman. And that's when she gets possessed by Eclipso. Because Superman tries to tell her to get to safety. And she's like, I'm done with you being condescending to me. And she gets possessed by Eclipso. And so Eclipso, Lois, and Superman start fighting. Meanwhile, Mona and Bruce get attacked by Eclipso-possessed citizens. Because the solar power trap... Because Mona doesn't have the solar power trap, she decides to do an extreme move and take a black diamond and allow herself to be under Eclipso's control so she can use the powers and the anger that she has against this guy attacking Bruce to fight the other possessed Eclipsos. So she gets possessed by Eclipso on purpose and then starts fighting the other Eclipsos while Lois Eclipso fights Superman and summons a bunch of the people, like all of the citizens of the town are all possessed by Eclipso, so she summons all of them to all surround Superman and fight him. Bruce only has one charge left in his solar power device. He can either free Mona, or he can save Superman. And he decides that Superman is the bigger priority because he can really help them. So he frees a bunch of the citizens with the solar power device, or like at least hurts them enough that they get away from Superman. So Superman manages to grab Bruce, take him to safety, and because Bruce doesn't have any power left in his solar power trap, he can't go back with... Like, Superman's gonna have to do this on his own now. So Superman heads back to fight Eclipso Lois by himself, and that's when the sun starts rising, and so Mona, like, Eclipso Mona is like, we gotta get the rest of these citizens in that building over there so that they don't lose... so Eclipso doesn't lose control of them. So all the people in Crater City, Crater Town, all head to safety away from the sun. And Eclipso Lois doesn't get out of the sun fast enough. She tries to go underwater to escape the sun, but Superman keeps her from diving underwater. And so Eclipso loses possession of Lois and she turns back to normal. And then Superman reveals to Bruce that he's going to head back to Crater Lake, or Crater City. What was the name of the town? Crater Bay. Yeah, so he's going to head back to Crater Bay and save everyone because Crater Bay is still possessed by Eclipso. So in Action Comics Annual 4, I guess that's what Superman's going to be doing. Is he's going to be fighting Eclipso in Crater Bay. And but that's not the next annual that we're going to be reading. The next annual is going to be Justice League of America Annual 6. So I guess we'll find out how Eclipso deals with the Justice League in that one. This annual was just like... Again, it's just another whatever one where it's like, because it's a Superman one, it's not that different to the last Superman one, where it's like, Superman just fights Eclipso possessed people. The only interesting thing about this one was that, like, Lois is possessed by Eclipso. And that's it. Starman was involved a little bit, but other than that, it's just kind of like, you could probably skip these ones and you wouldn't lose too much of the story. You know, I thought the solar powered trap being destroyed, when that happened, I was like, oh wow, actually something consequential is happening right now. And then they fixed it, and it's like, oh, okay. I guess they just fixed it. Whatever. I thought it was going to be broken from now on, and that would add an extra, dire situation, but nope. Right, so Justice League Annual 6, written by Dan Jurgens and Dan Mishkin, with art by Dave Cockrum and Jose Marzan Jr. So, this annual starts off with Eclipso announcing that he's going to try and take control of Martian Manhunter in the JLA, so that he can then take over the rest of the JLA, using Martian Manhunter's mind powers. But then he realizes that Martian Manhunter isn't a member of the JLA right now, because he's secretly Bloodwind. And so he decides to go after a different member instead, and we'll find out who that is a little bit later. The JLA have all united together, including Guy Gardner, who's wearing his old Green Lantern gear. Basically, he just says that the reason he's wearing his Green Lantern stuff, even though he's not a Green Lantern anymore, is because ever since Hal got taken control of by Eclipso, Kilowog gave Guy Gardner a lone ring so that he can use, so he can be a Green Lantern just for this one annual, or for the rest of the event, I guess. So they've all come together with Superman not Superman, Superman's not there yet, with Bruce Gordon. They're waiting for Superman to arrive. Metamorpho comes in, and immediately, like they all start arguing and stuff, because, like, Bloodwind basically says that he doesn't trust Metamorpho, and it causes a massive argument. Meanwhile, Superman is trying to convince Wonder Woman to help him fight Eclipso, and Wonder Woman's just like, nah, I don't want to. Sorry. I don't want to be a member of the Justice League, and I don't want to help you. And so Superman's like, oh, well, that sucks. Alright. I hope you change your mind, and he flies off. And she eventually does change her mind, because Wonder Woman comes across a cop who gets possessed by Eclipso after his partner is killed during a robbery. And so he starts, like, shooting all the criminals possessed by Eclipso. So Wonder Woman shows up and stops him, and, realizes that Eclipso is a real threat. And so she's like, okay, I guess I believe Superman, so I'm going to go off to the Justice League and join them in the fight against Eclipso. So Superman arrives at the Justice League headquarters, where he diffuses the argument going on with them, because when Wonder Woman shows up, Maxima gets really pissed off because she doesn't like Wonder Woman, because she sees Wonder Woman as, like, a rival for Superman's affections. So Maxima ends up leaving, and then Metamorpho leaves as well, because he gets pissed off at the fact that Bloodwind doesn't trust him, so he leaves too. So they've lost two very powerful members. And that's when Maxima comes across Starman. Just happens to meet Starman, possessed by Eclipso, who gives her a black diamond, and so she gets possessed by Eclipso and decides to cause havoc, because it's Eclipso and he's evil. Blue Beetle and Bruce Gordon decide that they're going to try and help each other make more solar-powered guns, while the rest of the Justice League go off to stop what's going on at a nuclear waste facility. It's being attacked by something, so most of the Justice League goes to deal with that, while Blue Beetle and Bruce Gordon stay behind in order to build more guns. Metamorpho didn't actually have enough time to leave, so he's still there, so he decides to stay with them and help them. But then Bruce Gordon is just like, I gotta go do something, and he just leaves, and Blue Beetle is just like, oh, okay. So Bruce just deserts him. So the Justice League all deal with, like, getting these nuclear canisters and stopping them from, like, being blown up and causing radiation to go everywhere. That's when they realize the person that they're fighting is Maxima under the control of Eclipso. She blows up a bunch of, like, radiation canisters, causing radioactive energy to go everywhere. So, Green Lantern contains all the radiation, like, Guy Gardner contains all the radiation using his powers, and he and Superman take them away into space where it can't harm anyone, while the rest of the Justice League fights Maxima. Blue Beetle starts working on a solar-powered gun, or like more of them, so that they all have some, when Eclipso shows up. And it's the actual Eclipso, or at least you're supposed to think that it's Bruce Gordon possessed by Eclipso because he just happened to leave, and then Eclipso showed up, and he looks like the classic Eclipso. So he shows up and starts chasing Blue Beetle throughout the facility, so you have kind of like a Home Alone situation where Blue Beetle is just constantly fighting off Eclipso throughout different parts of this comic. You know, he tries to lock him behind a barrier, and Eclipso just breaks through it. He tries knocking Eclipso out with a force field, and it doesn't do anything. I mean, it works for a little bit. Like, he knocks Eclipso out with the force field, and then sees Metamorpho, and he's like, oh, you must have come back to help me. And then it turns out that it wasn't Metamorpho, it was just Eclipso in disguise, pretending to be Metamorpho. So, Blue Beetle continues his fight against Eclipso. Eventually, he would go into the Bug, which is his, like, big giant ship, and he would use it to crash into the headquarters of the JLA, where he would then tap into the JLA's power source to make their regular lights solar powered so that it will destroy Eclipso. But Eclipso manages to escape in time and then reveals that it was actually Eclipso Starman pretending to be the Bruce Gordon Eclipso. So it wasn't actually Bruce Gordon. And then a mysterious figure comes up behind Blue Beetle and shines him in the face with a solar-powered ray gun, and then Blue Beetle disappears. And so that happens. I decided to just get that out of the way. That happens in between the Justice League fighting Maxima, but I thought I might as well just say, like, this is what happens to Blue Beetle throughout the annual, because it kind of cuts between the two of them. So the rest of the Justice League fight Maxima. Maxima uses... Like, Eclipso uses Maxima's powers to take control of Wonder Woman, and fights the rest of the Justice League. But Superman manages to get Wonder Woman out of her control by taking her far enough away from Maxima that she doesn't have control of Wonder Woman anymore. And then all of the Justice League blasts Maxima at once, knocking her out, and then they decide to figure out how to get her out of Eclipso's control, but then... Maxima takes control of Booster Gold's mind, because Eclipso is still present inside Maxima, so he was able to wake her back up and then use her powers to take control of Booster Gold's mind, so that she could then get away. So Maxima manages to escape, and the rest of the Justice League are forced to go back to the JLA headquarters, where they find the Bug crashed in their headquarters, and they find that Blue Beetle is missing, and Bloodwind comes to the conclusion that there's a good chance that Blue Beetle might be dead, and that we gotta figure out what happened to him, because we don't know what happened to him. He got blasted by a mysterious person, probably Bruce Gordon. I guess we'll find out in whatever annual is coming up next. Meanwhile, Maxima has gone back to Eclipso's palace and is with him, and that's what happens. That's this annual. And the next annual that we're going to be talking about is The Demon, Annual 1, because that was a series that was going on at this time, so we're going to be seeing what Etrigan the Demon gets up to during this event. Alright, so the next annual I'm going to be talking about is The Demon, Annual 1. It's written by Ellen Grant with art by Joe Phillips, David Johnson, and John Dell. And I'm actually going to be skipping like the first 16 pages because they have nothing to do with the Eclipso storyline. Basically, all that happens in the first 16 pages is that Jason Blood, who is the other half of Etrigan, and his friend Harry, who has been turned into a pillow. If you want to find out why, read The Demon. I don't, so I don't know why. He's just a pillow. They head to San Francisco to find this guy named Dr. Nihilo, who basically gave Jason Blood a letter saying, like, I can get the demon out of you. So he's going there to try and get Etrigan the Demon out. He gets attacked by a giant lobster creature while he's there, which was a test sent by Dr. Nihilo. Clarion the Witch Boy and Tikal, his pet cat, are following the demon because that's what they do. They're always, planning mischievous things. So Jason Blood and Harry make it to the mansion with, Dr. Nihilo's mansion with Clarion and Tikal in hot pursuit. And when they get there, Dr. Nihilo reveals that the reason he called Jason Blood is to talk to him about Eclipso. So he explains everything about Eclipso and the Black Diamond, and he basically says, I've come to the conclusion that we might be able to use a Black Diamond in order to get rid of Etrigan the Demon from your body. And Jason Blood's like, alright, what do you want in exchange? And Dr. Nihilo was like, well, I was given immortality by... Like, I was forced immortality on me by Eclipso. I hate living. I've lived for 9,000 years. I just want to die. So all I want from you is I want you to kill me. That's all I want. And meanwhile, Clarion and Tikal try to steal the Black Diamond because they hear of Eclipso and they're like, we could use the Black Diamond in order to control Eclipso and get him to do whatever we want. But their plan fails and Clarion ends up getting controlled by Eclipso. Eclipso ends up possessing Clarion. Jason refuses to kill Dr. Nihilo, and so Dr. Nihilo is like, if you won't kill me by choice, then I'll force you to. And he summons this giant golem thing to attack Jason. But at that same time, Clarion gets possessed by Eclipso, and he appears towards before Dr. Nihilo starts blasting him. And because Dr. Nihilo's old master is now back, Eclipso, he decides to help Eclipso in hopes that Eclipso will kill him. Because Clarion is possessed by Eclipso, Eclipso now knows the spell to summon Etrigan the Demon, so he does that. He summons the demon and forces Jason Blood to transform into Etrigan. And then Etrigan and Clarion, like Eclipso Clarion, start fighting. Eclipso mentions how, like, he would have loved to have the demon on his side, but because Clarion is fueled by the rage of killing the demon, Eclipso has no choice but to kill the demon because that's where the rage is coming from. Because whenever he possesses people, he always has to act upon that person's biggest, like, angry desire. You know? Clarion makes a bunch of gargoyles come to life and they all attack Etrigan and envelop him in stone. Dr. Nihilo begs for Clarion to kill him, but he refuses because he prefers letting Nihilo live because that's not what he wants. Etrigan breaks out of the stone and straps Clarion to a lightning rod and then blasts Dr. Nihilo and blinds him. And then Clarion breaks free and fights Etrigan again. And so Etrigan's gonna die, and Harry's like, I gotta do something. And Harry, who is the pillow head, the pillow dude, he learnt how to, like, hypnotize people. He just learnt a little trick to hypnotize people. So he hypnotizes Clarion and Tikal into believing that the sun is coming out. And so they run away, allowing Etrigan to be free. Dr. Nihilo is refused to be killed by Clarion, and so he's just left to live, not just immortal, but also blind now. And so Etrigan and Harry leave Nihilo blind and immortal behind and helpless while they leave the castle and ride away. And Clarion, who is still possessed by Eclipso, has gone, and he's gone somewhere. And I guess we'll maybe find out in another annual. But yeah, that's it. That's the end of that. The next annual that we're going to be talking about is The Flash Annual 5. So look forward to that, I guess. The Etrigan Annual was fine. I think it was fun seeing Clarion be possessed by Eclipso because he is already a chaotic character, so seeing him and Etrigan fight was fun. And the whole thing with Dr. Nihilo, learning a bit, like, how his connections with Eclipso was definitely better than some of the other annuals. But it sucks that the first 16 pages of this are just completely pointless to the event, and it's just like, you can skip them. You can skip straight to them getting to the mansion, and you don't miss any story, you know. But yeah. Alright, so now we're talking about The Flash Annual 5, written by Mark Waid and Craig Boldman, with art by Travis Charest, Dan Davis, Scott Hanna, and John Lowe. So the annual starts off with... It takes us a bit to get into the Eclipso stuff, but it does serve a purpose during the story. We just got a bit of a journey to get there. So it begins with Wally West faces the Trickster. The Trickster is currently holed up in a place called Jesse Opticals. He leaves like a can of nuts on the ground near some policemen and are just watching them because he's hoping that they fall for his prank. And that's when Wally shows up and starts fighting the Trickster. And he starts to get the upper hand on the Trickster, but then gets frozen by Weather Wizard's hailstorm. And so Weather Wizard tells Trickster that Captain Cold has summoned the rogues because he has a little job for them. And but then Weather Wizard is like, but maybe you shouldn't come because you're stupid, Trickster, you suck. And then it's revealed that the can was actually a giant jack-in-the-box that sends the cops flying. And so Weather Wizard is like, alright, I was wrong, you can come. Maybe you are going to be helpful. So after having the shit beat out of him, Wally heads back he heads to Chunk's house, Chester's, where Chester is working on a singularity device, and then it goes haywire and turns Chunk inside out, and so the entire house turns into Chunk's black hole insides, and Wally gets stuck inside. It's as weird as it sounds. So he has to figure out a way to get out. He sees all of Chunk's memories, and eventually he slows down his own speed because he figures out that if he slows down his speed, he can hear what Chunk is saying to him. And Chunk tells Wally to destroy the teleporter, and so Wally destroys the teleporter, and it frees him from Chunk's black hole dimension. And then Chunk and Wally decide to go and get ribs on Tuesday or Monday. They decide to go have ribs together. Captain Boomerang, Weather Wizard, and Trickster all meet at the cinemas because that's where Captain Cold wanted to meet them, and they find out that it wasn't Captain Cold that summoned them, it was Golden Glider and her new boyfriend, Chillblaine. There's kind of a running gag in this run where, there's a new Chillblaine all the time because they all keep dying and they never have a name, which is kind of funny. So they're all talking about their plan. Golden Glider wants to go to a museum so that she can get this thing called the Black Diamond, and while the rogues are there, they can steal whatever they want. That's their prize for helping her. There's a couple of guys in the cinema that get annoyed at the rogues for talking over the movie, and Chillblaine just breaks their hands. So yeah, the rogues agreed to go to the museum on Tuesday, but Captain Boomerang, Weather Wizard, and Trickster decide to go on Monday instead. So they're basically betraying Golden Glider because they're going earlier than they were supposed to. Wally gets ready to meet Chunk at the restaurant, but then Chillblaine shows up and kidnaps him. The rogues head to the museum and they break in, and when they get to where the Black Diamond is supposed to be, they find Golden Glider and Chillblaine, and they also find Wally West, the Flash. And Golden Glider basically says the Black Diamond is in this sphere, this giant ball and chain, and the ball and chain is attached to Wally's leg. So if you want that Black Diamond, you're gonna have to kill the Flash. And so, and you're also gonna have to kill each other, because she kisses the three of the rogues, and Chillblaine gets a bit jealous. But then it turns out the reason she kissed them is because she had poison on her lips, and she only has one antidote, and whoever gets the Black Diamond gets the antidote. And so the rogues have to not only fight each other, but also fight the Flash to try and get the antidote and the Black Diamond. It turns out that the Black Diamond isn't actually in the ball and chain that is attached to Wally's leg. It's actually, Golden Glider has it, and she's actually tricking the rogues into thinking that that's the Black Diamond when it isn't. It's actually a bomb. So, they chase after the Flash, trying to look for him. Meanwhile, Chunk heads off to go find Wally because Wally didn't show up for his ribs. He gets a call from a mysterious person who tells him to go and find Wally. So yeah, Wally gets chased by the rogues, and he eventually breaks the brace that's around his leg using the help of Weather Wizard's powers. Because Weather Wizard shoots a giant tirade of clouds that pushes Wally up to the ceiling, and then he smashes his leg through the ceiling, and that doesn't break the brace. So Trickster tries to cut it off of Wally's leg in order to get the Black Diamond, but Wally knocks him away and uses the saw and super speed to cut through the brace, so he finally frees himself. And then that's when they discover that it's actually a bomb, and it starts vibrating, and Wally takes the bomb away and throws it away so that, people don't get hurt. He puts it in a wheelchair and throws the wheelchair away, and it explodes, saving everyone. And then Chillblaine comes in and starts beating the crap out of Wally, and then has him at gunpoint. And then Golden Glider puts the real Black Diamond on in the tiara, because she doesn't know what the Black Diamond actually is. She puts it on and gets possessed by Eclipso, and then Eclipso kills Chillblaine, because Golden Glider thinks that Chillblaine was the one who betrayed her, and so she kills him, and he's dead. And then she tries to kill the other rogues and Wally, and she tries to kill a bunch of citizens because it's Eclipso. So she starts trying to kill all these citizens, and then Wally's trying to save people, and then Chunk shows up, and Golden Glider has Wally at her mercy, and Wally is asking Chester to help him, but a mysterious person who is behind Chester is stopping Chester from helping Wally, and so Wally ends up getting possessed by Eclipso, because Golden Glider gives him the tiara, and so Eclipso loses control of Golden Glider and takes control of Wally West, and so Wally West has become possessed by Eclipso, and so he runs off to God knows where, and Chunk leaves, and we're left wondering, why did Chunk not help Wally? Who is this mysterious person that forced Chunk to turn against Wally? And what's going to happen next? Because that's the end of the Flash Annual, and I don't know when we're going to find out the conclusion to this. Maybe, we're going to probably see Wally West show up in, a future Eclipso Annual or something, in order to get a resolution to that story, and Mark Waid or somebody else is gonna, reveal who was controlling Chunk and, forcing his hand. I don't know. We'll find out. That one was not great. It was fine. I think Mark Waid helped to make it better, but it's clear that the other guy, was the reason that the story was kind of, not great. It took a long time for the Eclipso stuff to actually happen, and most of the issue is just the rogues trying to kill Wally, and, that gets tiring after a while, where, Wally is just, it's just like cat and mouse, It almost felt like stalling, trying to fill pages, because it's an annual, so they had to do, 50-plus pages, so it just felt like they were dragging it out on purpose to fill the page requirement. But whatever. The next annual we're going to be talking about is Action Comics Annual 4. Alright, so the next annual we're going to be talking about is Action Comics Annual 4, Living Daylights. So, it's written by Dan Vado, with art by Chris Wozniak, Carl Alstetter, Trevor Scott, Carl Kessel, and Steve Mitchell. So, Superman, Booster Gold, Fire, and Ice all go to visit Dr. Bennett, the father of Mona Bennett, and they want him to help them with stopping Eclipso and saving Crater Bay, but he has no interest in helping them because he's so depressed over the loss of his daughter, who is currently possessed by Eclipso. So, Superman forces Fire, Ice, and Booster Gold to leave him alone and they'll figure out what to do on their own. So Superman comes to the conclusion that he has no choice. In order to save Crater Bay, he's got to sacrifice himself. So he's going to offer himself up to Eclipso in order for everyone in Crater Bay to be free of Eclipso. So he goes off to do that. Booster Gold, Fire, and Ice don't like that idea, and so they decide to come up with a backup plan. They go to visit Lex Luthor and Dr. Hamilton and ask the two of them to help them build a giant solar trap that'll be big enough to free everyone in Crater Bay, including Superman, if he gets possessed. And just in case Superman does get possessed, Ice has recruited a mysterious friend to not only help them move the solar trap to the location, but also to fight Superman if they need somebody to fight Superman. So Superman arrives at Crater Bay, where he finds Cross, the guy whose wife has been kidnapped by Eclipso. And then he, asks for Eclipso. He's like, Eclipso, I'll give myself up to you and you can possess me if you just let everyone in Crater Bay free. And Eclipso agrees to Superman's terms. Superman is like, you're gonna set everyone free, aren't you? And Eclipso's like, you don't believe me? Of course I will. And so he starts berating Superman in order to make him angry, because he gives him a black diamond, but Superman has to be angry in order for Eclipso to possess him. So he starts berating Superman and mocking him and stuff until Superman is angry enough that he becomes possessed by Eclipso. A Booster Gold shows up and he doesn't know that Superman has actually gone through the possession already. So he shows up and Eclipso Superman just straight up smacks him in the face and starts strangling him. But then Superman gets attacked by Fire, allowing Booster to get away. Superman and Fire fight one another, and Superman blasts Fire, which sends her falling into the forest. So Ice and Booster have to go off and save her from Superman, because Superman is currently determined to kill Fire. Meanwhile, Dr. Hamilton and Lex Luthor are having a little chat when the mysterious person who kidnapped Blue Beetle shows up and shines a flashing light at them, and so they are presumably kidnapped as well. We have no idea who this person is. It's probably Bruce Gordon, maybe, because he went missing. So Superman goes to kill Fire, but before he can do it, he gets hit by somebody from behind. And it turns out that this person is Captain Marvel. And Captain Marvel was the one who was recruited by Ice in order to move the solar panel, and now he's here in order to fight Superman. It kind of comes off as if he doesn't know that Superman is possessed by Eclipso, but by the end of the annual, he does mention Superman being possessed by Eclipso, so I honestly don't know if it was a case of, Captain Marvel just didn't know, or, he found out, he caught on as it went on. Either way, he's fighting possessed Superman. They have a massive fight. Couple of explosions happen, which cause the entire town to get set on fire, which doesn't help Fire, Ice, and Booster, who are all fighting all the Eclipso-possessed townspeople while they wait for the solar panel to go off because it's on a timer. But things are dire. Things do not go their way. They're struggling against the entire town. Meanwhile, Captain Marvel is struggling against Superman. Superman is overpowering him. So Cross eventually finds the solar panel machine and sees that it's going to take 40 minutes for it to go off. And he's like, that's too long in order for my wife to be saved. So I'm going to try and rig the machine and see if I can get it to set off a bit sooner. So he starts tinkering around with the machine, and he manages to set it off in time. Unfortunately, Captain Marvel causes possessed Superman to crash into a bunch of gasoline, spreading it all over the town and spreading the fire even further destroying the town. Cross manages to turn on the machine, and everyone in the town is purged from the sunlight of the solar panel machine. It stops working for a sec, but then starts working again, and so possessed Superman decides that he has to leave. He's like, I could have killed Captain Marvel, but I'm going to leave you to live because I'd rather remain in possession of Superman's body than kill you and lose possession. So he flies off. Booster, Fire, and Ice decide to put out the fires that are remaining, and then the town is really upset at them because they've destroyed their entire town. Cross reunites with his wife, and then Captain Marvel shows up and is like, we gotta figure out how we're going to, like, what we're gonna do next, especially when it comes to Superman, because not only is he possessed by Eclipso, but we don't know where he's gone. He's gone somewhere, and we're gonna have to find him. And that's where the annual ends. It ends right there. It ends with us, So the next annual, according to this, the next annual we're going to be reading is Hulk World Annual 3, and then Robin Annual 1, and then the answers to where Superman currently is are going to be told later on in Adventures of Superman Annual 4, so we got a few annuals to get through before we get to that. So I thought the Hawk World Annual was next, but it's apparently the Wonder Woman Annual, specifically Wonder Woman Annual 3. Yeah, so that's the next one that we're reading, written by William Misner-Loebs, with art by John Dennis and David Johnson. This annual, this Eclipso tie-in, sucks. And it's sad that this is the final one that we're going to be talking about in this week's episode. So we're ending kind of on a dud. The reason why it sucks isn't because the story itself sucks. The story is fine. It just doesn't really tie into Eclipso at all until, like, towards the end, or, like, 3/4 of the way in. And, it ties in the worst way, where it's clearly just William Misner-Loebs wants to tell a story, but he has to have it tie into the Eclipso event, and so he just, like, half-assedly puts it in. So basically, in this issue, Wonder Woman meets this guy called the White Magician, who helps her save a couple of hostages, but unfortunately the guy that was holding them hostage, who was a metahuman, he died. And so after he helps Wonder Woman save those hostages, he invites Wonder Woman over to his mansion. Just letting you know, a lot happens. Like, I'm summarizing this very quickly because I don't want to talk about the whole story, because it really has nothing to do with the Eclipso event until they get to his mansion. So, which is like 20 pages in, and it's only a 54-page story. So they get to his mansion, and they have dinner together, and the White Magician gives Wonder Woman a tiara which has the black diamond in it. First time a black diamond shows up in this issue, and we are literally 30 pages in. There has not been a single mentioning of Eclipso or the black diamonds. They go to his library and they look through books and shit. That doesn't matter. That's not what we're here for. We're here for Eclipso. So he gives her the black diamond, and then after giving her the black diamond, Wonder Woman puts it on, and then she starts having, like, this dream. It's basically a dream fabricated by the White Magician to make her angry so that she can be possessed by Eclipso. Because what he plans on doing is he plans on using Eclipso's power to control Wonder Woman, so that he can use her to, do whatever he wants. And he is hoping that he can stop Eclipso from taking over entirely by binding Wonder Woman once she becomes possessed. So by binding her, he might stop the full transformation, and therefore just have, like, a mindless Diana to control. Obviously, that doesn't go in his favor. So Wonder Woman has a dream where Themyscira has basically just been turned into a pitiful version of itself, where all of the women are basically just swooning over men, trying to please them, which really pisses Wonder Woman off, because she's like, we shouldn't be lowering ourselves for all these men. What are you doing? Like, one guy straight up tries to rape one of them, and Wonder Woman stops him, but then her mom is like, you should let him go. We need to be nice to the men. It's so hard to read this shit. Even though it's not actually happening, and it's all just happening in her mind, it's just like, William, what are you doing? What are you doing? What is this story that you're trying to tell? Wonder Woman touches her mum's hand, and then her mum crumbles into dust, and she thinks that it's because of the black diamond. Again, this is all just happening in her mind. And so all of this stuff that happens makes Diana so angry that she finally gets taken control of by Eclipso. And it turns out she never left the mansion. She was there the entire time. She was just in a weird dream state. And then White Magician tries to tangle her up in a bunch of magic to keep her from fully transforming into Eclipso. And then he goes and he starts making out with this reporter that he's dating. She doesn't matter. But while they're making out, Diana shows up, possessed by Eclipso, having broken out of the binding spell, and she tries to kill the White Magician. And he's just like, "Ah, shit, I wasn't expecting you to get fully controlled by Eclipso. This wasn't part of my plan." So Eclipso, Wonder Woman, tries to kill this reporter, but ends up not killing her because she sees her as inferior and not worth killing, and that she would rather go after the White Magician because, you know, he's much more worth, like, he's worth killing more. So she goes after him, and she thinks that she kills him in, like, a greenhouse, but he manages to save himself with some magic, and she's just like, "I've had enough of this." Like, Eclipso Wonder Woman's like, "I've had enough of this. I've got to go back to the real Eclipso, or, like, the main Eclipso, in his moon palace. So I'm going to fly off to the moon and reunite with the other heroes that have all been possessed and are all currently residing on the moon." So she flies off to the moon, and that's it. That's the end of the annual. There's some stuff with White Magician, but it doesn't matter. Like, we're not going to see White Magician again in Eclipso because he's just a Wonder Woman character. He's not a part of this event outside of the Wonder Woman annual. So, yeah, as you can tell, I didn't enjoy reading this. The whole time I was reading it, I was like, when are we gonna get to Eclipso? When are we gonna get to the event stuff? And it doesn't happen until 30 pages in. This annual is only 54 pages, and over half of it has nothing to do with the event. Or at least it does, technically, because White Magician is the one that gave her the Black Diamond, but you might as well just skip straight to the mansion when he gives her the diamond, because the rest of it doesn't actually matter. It doesn't affect anything. You're not missing anything. Unless you're reading Wonder Woman, I guess. But, you know, if you're not reading Wonder Woman like I am, like I'm not, you know, I don't care about, like, what's currently going on in Wonder Woman's story when I'm reading this event. I just want to see what happens to Wonder Woman in the Eclipso event. I want to see what happens when she gets possessed by Eclipso. Because the cover makes you like, the cover is straight up, there's no White Magician on the cover, it's just Eclipso Wonder Woman. So you go in expecting Wonder Woman to get Eclipsoed pretty early on, like how Superman did in the last annual, and then be Eclipso for most of the annual. But no, she becomes Eclipso towards the end of the annual, right near the end, the last 10 pages, and then she leaves. It sucked. Like, it was not good. This is definitely the worst annual so far, because at least the other ones felt like actual parts of the story. You know, this one felt like a supplement to the story, like an after-dinner mint. But yeah, so unfortunately, we had to end on a bit of a dud. That's going to be it for this episode. I still hope that you enjoyed the rest of the episode. I think this event is pretty mediocre so far. The annuals have all been, like, okay. I don't think there have been any, like, really bad ones. Like even the Wonder Woman one, even though it pissed me off that it wasn't directly tied into the event as much as I would want it to be, it wasn't awful. You know, the writing was still fine. There were some weird choices. I just didn't care. That's all it was. It wasn't bad. I just didn't care. But yeah, so I'll be back next week with some more Eclipso, where we will be reading Green Arrow Annual 5. That's the one we're going to be starting off with next week. Batman's in this one, so it's Green Arrow, Batman, and what looks like an Eclipso-possessed Black Canary. So we got that to look forward to. So I hope you join me next week. And if you enjoyed this week's podcast, please rate the podcast. Follow the podcast if you're not following it, and share it around with people. You know, if you know anyone who wants to listen to, you know, me explain comic books and talk about comic books, then yeah, share it with them. Get people involved in this. I'm hoping more people can start listening to this because I really enjoy doing it and I want to keep doing it, and I want to try and start growing like a little audience for this podcast, because that would be awesome. So yeah, I'll see you next week, and thanks for joining me.